What exit? If there was a way to leave, I'm pretty sure we'd have all left by now.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Good morning, everyone. I hope your day is going well. Welcome to episode 1 of the series where I analyze all the important characters in the Amazing Digital Circus. It honestly feels really weird that the series is over. In the past, when I was invested in shows, I've always kind of missed the hype of the grand finale. Either because the ending was bad, I lost interest partway through and the ending was bad, or I forgot about the show until recently because I was busy graduating from college and getting married. Or the secret fourth option, where I got interested in something that's been out and finished for several years, and the hype of the finale has long since settled down. The point is, I'm a little bit nervous to be talking about a show that's so fresh on everyone's minds, but I'm also really excited, because this is the type of analysis that I really like doing. I love character analysis. It's something that I'm really passionate about, and I always love sharing it with all of you. In the upcoming series, I'll be looking at where a character started, where they ended up, and what their ultimate place in the series was. And we'll be starting on this analysis journey with Zooble. Zooble is an interesting case, because unlike some of the other circus members, they don't really have an episode that's dedicated to them specifically. Their arc is a lot more subtle because of that, and that makes it really interesting to try and get into what they're feeling and where they ended up. And I hope that I can do them justice for all the Zooble fans out there. As I implied before, this is a first in a series of character analysis videos, so if you want to make sure you're notified when I talk about your favorite, be sure to subscribe. And feel free to let me know what you think of this video in the comments below. And maybe it goes without saying, but thank you to Gooseworx and every other person at Glitch who worked so hard to make the Amazing Digital Circus happen. Regardless of any criticisms I might have, this series feels like something truly special, and I feel so grateful that we were able to experience it. And I hope that no matter what happens next, we're able to appreciate the beauty and love of this series for many years to come. With all of that said, I think it's time we get started. Grab some water, whatever type of sandwiches these are, and get comfortable. Let's talk about Zooble from the Amazing Digital Circus. How a character is introduced is an important part of establishing who they are, and Zooble's introduction is interesting because it's a little bit deceptive. Zooble, to a lot of early audience members, seemed very disconnected and apathetic. Because at first glance, they just seemed to want nothing to do with anything happening. The pilot had them being dragged around against their will, and the second episode had them very bluntly refusing to engage with anything Caine was proposing. We hardly spend any time with them because they just refuse to be part of things, and that makes it feel like they just don't care about what's happening.
They're just something fun to do to, prevent us from going insane.
Speak for yourself. If anyone needs me, then f*** off.
But this ends up being a twist, because we eventually find out that they used this time to prepare Kaufmo's funeral, something that no one else would have really had the opportunity to do. This is a small but clever subversion, because it teaches us something about Zooble, and because it puts us in the same mindset as Pomni. Pomni is struggling pretty badly in this episode, because she's just been transported to a world where everyone seems to have their own unique way of isolating themselves, and she really doesn't have anyone to connect to in a place that's new and terrifying. But then, just after Pomni has lost the first friend that she's made, the seemingly stoic and detached character reveals that they were planning a funeral service, proving in one fell swoop that not only do they care about what happens, but everyone else does too. Even those that have passed on aren't forgotten, and this allows Pomni to realize that she isn't as alone as she initially thought. It's clean and efficient writing that communicates that the people here are actual people who care about things. Zooble is deadpan and doesn't like going on adventures, but that doesn't mean that they don't care. They just have other stuff going on. So if their ultimate character flaw isn't apathy, what exactly is going on with them?
It's me. remember? I don't like myself. I hate this body. I hate all these stupid removable pieces. I just want to find something that feels good.
In this scene, Zooble tells Caine, and by extension the audience, what they think their own problem is. And it's almost there, but not quite. They have struggles with feeling like they don't fit in their own body, and none of the pieces that they have really fit in a way that makes them feel secure. But later on in the series, we get the answer to this problem from Zooble's own mouth, and it's not managing to find the piece that fits just right. It's about choosing to love every part of yourself, even if some of those parts feel like they only cause you problems.
How are you supposed to like the part of yourself that just makes you worse than everyone else?
'Cause it exists. It's a part of you that's real. And the only you that you should care about is the real you. You have to choose to love yourself, even if it doesn't make sense.
Have you ever had to make that choice?
Huh?
In other words, Zooble's problem isn't this underlying insecurity. It's the fact that they're very good at being there for others, but they have a really hard time giving themselves that same grace. It feels obvious when Zooble says that they don't like their body because of the character design choices that have been made, but it's not immediately obvious in the way that they act most of the time. Zooble comes across as very sure of themselves in many situations, particularly because they're one of the only characters that can actually declare and maintain boundaries. And from this moment in the couch session, we can see that Zooble kind of has an awareness that this is the case.
Caine, nobody likes your stupid adventures.
Ha ha! Good one, Zooble.
Ragatha's just too nice to say anything. Jax just likes to f*** with everybody. Gangle's too shy to speak up. Kinger's insane. And Pomni, she looks traumatized every time she comes back from one.
Caine will often respond to Zooble's criticism because, for one reason or another, they're one of the only people who can consistently put their foot down and say no. Contrary to what some other characters and even Zooble thinks later, they don't do this to be contrarian or aggressive. They understand how far above them Caine is in terms of power. But I feel like they still choose to speak out a lot of the time because they're really the only one that can. They see it as almost a responsibility to tell Caine when he's going too far. And when they do, it often works in causing him to do something else. Caine even seems to appreciate this to some extent, with this moment where he very casually and not suspiciously comes to Zooble to get their opinion. This could be a way of him chasing validation, but it feels like more than that, because the way he's acting seems like he wants them to initiate the conversation, to talk about the adventure that just happened. Even if he doesn't acknowledge criticism, he still wants to hear it, and Zooble's the one that can do that for him. When Caine returns after the escape adventure, Zooble is the first one to realize that something is really wrong about the way he's acting. And instead of doubling down on the indignation like you'd expect, or continuing to refuse like Pomni, they try and compromise, asking for some time to process things instead of demanding answers. They don't back down when they have a point to make, but they're more than willing to compromise if that's what's needed for the situation. Zooble doesn't seem to have any problem standing up for others or themselves if there's a bigger problem that needs to be handled. But standing up for yourself against yourself is a lot harder. And it's these internal struggles that prevent Zooble from being the guardian and protector that they clearly want to be. Zooble is confident about a lot of things, especially their sense of what's wrong and what's right and how you should treat other people, but they don't feel comfortable in their own skin, and that insecurity causes them to isolate themselves. That behavior ends up indirectly hurting the people that they care about. People like to talk about Zooble being protective of Gangle, and this is an aspect of their personality and dynamic, but Zooble is only a protector when they're around, and that clearly didn't happen very often before Pomni.
We've been together for every team adventure in the past.
Guess times are changing, bunny boy.
Do you think Jax is gonna be mad that I didn't team up with him? He probably wants revenge, and he's gonna make it painful.
This self-imposed isolation isn't just a problem for Gangle. As I said before, their general attitude gives the impression that they don't care. For the first few episodes of the series, Zooble would say one thing, but their actions would say something entirely different. They say, "Welcome to your new home" to Pomni, and based on how they act later, they probably mean it. But they spend the rest of the episode doing their best to interact as little as possible with everyone, so it ends up feeling like a platitude more than something sincere. They're willing and ready to help other people, but they haven't applied that same goodwill and understanding to themselves. When Gangle asks if they've ever had to make that choice for themselves, it catches Zooble off guard because they weren't thinking of themselves at all in this moment. And it causes a moment of doubt. Because do they really have the right to give this advice if they can't even follow it? But Gangle reaching out and taking their hand reinforces their words as true. In this moment, Gangle is accepting Zooble as they are, without any caveats. They respect and admire Zooble, and that is true regardless of whatever flaws and hang-ups Zooble feels that they have. And this open acceptance allows Zooble to feel comfortable in their own skin, maybe for the first time ever since they've been here. And this is what I consider to be the true start of Zooble's arc in becoming more open and accepting of themselves, which is an arc that is both subtle and straightforward. It's subtle in the fact that Zooble never really takes the spotlight, and updates about how they're feeling and progressing often come from them, because they keep their cards close to the chest, but share with those that are close to them. But this arc is also straightforward in the fact that once Zooble makes the realization, they're able to start making improvements in the background without us having to observe every step they take. As we've seen from their protective nature, Zooble is loyal in every way that implies. They're protective of their friends and defensive against perceived threats. And as they grow, this loyalty remains, but it's able to expand beyond just their friends. Zooble starts to make the choice to reach out to people when they're alone. At first, they're doing this for people that they feel need it, without registering the admiration and respect that others have for them. But after that moment with Gangle, they start trying to take their own advice and accept themselves as they are. And this allows them to try and be there for people they never would have considered before. In the second episode, Jax doesn't attend Kaufmo's funeral, and Zooble doesn't say anything about it. At the time, they probably saw it as a good thing. He wasn't there to potentially make light of things or ruin something. But by the time we get to episode 7, the sight of Jax isolating is enough to give them pause. They reach out in their own way to try and figure out what's going on, and they do it again in episode 8. This shows that they've grown beyond just shielding people that they think deserve it. By looking inside and choosing to love something that makes their life harder, it allows them to feel empathy for the struggles of someone they previously admitted to hating. Even with all the resentment and justified anger they probably have toward Jax, they're no longer willing to just stand by and let him suffer. It shows that they've grown, with them being able to see the humanity in Jax even if they don't forgive him or see him as entirely trustworthy. They make a commitment to protect and care for him too, because no one deserves to feel alone in a place like this. And I'm just gonna ask you to put a pin in that thought for a second. I'm gonna come back to it later. It's mainly through Zooble's growing relationship with Gangle that we see them start to come into their own. Gangle's complete acceptance of them, flaws and all, is what allows them to finally take that step and try to love themselves as is, instead of searching for a missing piece that never seems to quite fit right. Zooble's arc is an internal, almost invisible struggle for self-acceptance. The support from Gangle and some of the others is helpful and important, but ultimately it's Zooble that needs to make the decision to start seeing themselves as something worthwhile, even if there are parts of themselves that they don't fully understand. Finding the right support is important, but ultimately, you must make the choice to love yourself, and realize that people see you as a complete and whole person, just as you are. Self-love is not a one-time decision. It's something that you need to decide to do over and over and over again, even when the doubts start to creep in and try and drown you. This is probably going to be something that Zooble struggles with for the rest of their life, even if the doubts lessen as time goes by. Because it's very easy to say that you need to love every part of yourself, but it's much harder to actually do in practice. But that doesn't make it any less important, because it is a part of you. And when I say that you're worth loving, that means all of you, not just the parts that you think are good or admirable or digestible. Loving yourself is hard, and it's a constant decision that you need to make every day, but it's worth it. And Zooble shows us how much happier you can be and how much good you can do in the world if you decide to take that jump. Which brings us to one of our final sections. Why was Zooble's character necessary for the overall story of the Amazing Digital Circus? This series talks about a lot, but one of the main themes that it revolves around is helping those around you and making sure that they feel seen and loved. But Zooble's arc reminds us that only you can decide to love yourself, regardless of what support other people try and give you. Zooble is ultimately able to make the choice to love themselves, but Jax isn't. And the result of that is tragic and deeply sad, regardless of the pain that he caused to other people. Zooble is a very caring person who wants to support those around her, but they're only able to do it fully after they choose to love themselves. It's only after they start making that choice that they can be fully open to even people that they previously claimed to hate. No one deserves to feel alone, and that includes how you decide to treat yourself. If you're going to say that everyone is deserving of love and respect, that equation includes you, and that is not up for debate. This message is an important part of the story being told and the lessons that the series wants us to learn. But the big question is, does the finale manage to bring these ideas home? Does the finale do the character of Zooble and their arc justice? And this is unfortunately where things get a little bit muddy. I have some fairly broad problems with the finale, in that I think it did pretty well in some areas, but overall it felt a little rushed in how it uses its time and characters. And this unfortunately applies to Zooble. You remember that pin from earlier, where Zooble looks at Jax and says that they're not going to let him run off and abstract or something? And then in the finale, that's exactly what happens? Yeah, I have a little bit of a problem with that. You can't always help someone who doesn't want it, and it's very possible that any help Zooble offered would have been rejected. But we don't even see them try, and that feels very egregious to me. It honestly makes me kind of mad, because this was a really good scene, but then we don't see these characters make any attempt to stay true to their word. The others slowly begin to gather and learn to conjure things with Kinger, But there's no attempt from anyone to reach out to Jax, even though he's obviously isolating. And it feels like a slap in the face when they specifically said that they weren't going to leave him behind. Jax fully believes that he is not worthy of love and that he doesn't deserve the same redemption chance that everyone else seems to get. And none of the characters do anything to dissuade him from this idea until it's way too late. It feels like we've gone backwards in a way that I just really can't get behind. And it feels extra bad because there didn't need to be a lot to fix this problem. Something as simple as a shot of the others looking worried or some extra Pomni narration could have helped to show us that they were trying and just couldn't help. But the only thing we get is this one attempted conversation with Pomni and nothing else. It makes Zooble's words from earlier feel disingenuous, and I don't think that was the intention of the writing at all. When Zooble later saves Pomni and says that they weren't ever gonna let her go by herself, it's meant to be a feel-good moment where the connections that she's made come to fruition to help her. But it feels insincere, because Zooble said nearly the exact same thing to Jax, and then we see no effort from them to actually reach out when it really matters. Again, I don't think this was something intentional, but it really gets under my skin, because it feels like an accident, and that's frustrating. Something as simple as a worried glance, an attempt at contact, Pomni talking about how they fought as Jax shoves them all away. Anything would have worked, but as it stands, I think the structure of the finale does the characters a disservice, and especially it makes Zooble look insincere, when the fact that they are willing to give Jax a second chance is really important to the narrative. The way that it is now makes it feel like Jax is right to assume that none of the others would care if he died. And that is not good when the point of the series is that they do care, even if he hurt them. There are a lot of things about the finale that I like, and a lot of things that make sense character-wise. But there are parts like this that just feel rushed in a way that sours my enjoyment a little bit. Overall, besides this small bit, I think that Zooble's arc works really well. Zooble is ultimately a kind and caring person, and this shows in their willingness to give Caine another chance. The fact that it's them who responds to Caine after his plea feels right to me, because Zooble was one of the only characters that was willing to be real with Caine. So it feels genuine when they say that Caine will have to earn their trust. And it further shows that someone can always decide to do better if they change and decide to love themselves. Which is another reason that I think the implication of everyone forgetting about Jax is very unintentional. Overall, even though I have my own quibbles about how things were handled in the finale, I really love Zooble as a character. They play a vital role in the show's themes of self-acceptance and helping others around you. Even if their role isn't as flashy as some of the others, I'm very happy that we were able to get to know them as a character. And I think a lot of people can probably see themselves in Zooble and maybe take away the lesson that they're a wonderful person who deserves all the love and care that they're constantly giving to others. I'm very happy that we were able to get to know Zooble, and I'd personally like to wish them a happy Pride Month, as they are finally able to be themselves fully and pursue the things that they desire most in the world. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you'd like to be notified when I post the next character analysis, be sure to subscribe. As I said, I'm going to be doing everyone, and I'd hate for you to miss the one that you're looking forward to. I'll be out of town when this video drops, so no after-party stream this time, but if you want to look at the previous streams that I've done, be sure to check out my VODs channel. And future live streams are on Twitch, starting at 12 o'clock PDT most Saturdays. And I'd like to take a moment to thank all of my patrons, whose generosity helps me to continue making videos like this one. A special thank you to all of you, including but not limited to Perplexia Sphinx, Sneck, Tree, Lurch18489, Sphinx, I May Be Dumb, and Puppet Wraith. And thank you all once again for watching. Take care of yourselves and each other, and I hope to see you all again soon. Bye!